Welcome back to Powerful Stoic Habits, where we uncover timeless Stoic wisdom to help you navigate life's toughest challenges with strength and clarity. Today, we're diving into one of the most overlooked yet powerful lessons in both Stoicism and relationships: the power of silence. Why silence? Why now? In a world filled with constant noise, instant responses, and endless justifications, we often forget one fundamental truth: words don't always work. Sometimes, silence speaks louder than any explanation, any argument, or any declaration of love. And if you've ever been in this situation, you know exactly what I mean. You gave your time, energy, and love to someone. You prioritized them over yourself, hoping they would recognize your effort. You sacrificed your well-being to make them happy. And what did they do? They took you for granted. Your kindness became an expectation, not an appreciation. Your availability became their entitlement. And when you finally spoke up, when you expressed your feelings, when you tried to make them see your worth, nothing. Which means the harder you tried, the more they pulled away, the more you gave, the less they respected you. And that's when you realize words aren't enough, why words fail, and silence. Wins words alone don't change people. You can't force someone to appreciate you if they believe you'll always be there. You can't teach someone to value you when they're too comfortable taking you for granted. But silence forces them to feel. It removes the comfort of your presence. It takes away their safety net. Suddenly, they're left alone with their own thoughts, forced to confront the reality they've been avoiding. And that's when the world they took for granted starts to feel colder, emptier, unfamiliar. The real impact of your silence. Your silence does what your words never could. It creates absence. And absence creates clarity. It forces them to sit with their choices, their mistakes. It shows them what life is like without you, the warmth, the security, the support they once had but never truly valued. But let's be clear, this isn't about revenge. This isn't about manipulation. This is about reclaiming your power. Because the truth is, if they only appreciate you when you're gone, they never truly valued you in the first place. The Stoic perspective: control what you can. The Stoics taught one fundamental truth: you don't control others. You only control yourself. Marcus Aurelius once said, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." And this is exactly why silence is powerful. It's not about making them suffer. It's not about waiting for them to realize your worth. It's about choosing yourself over someone who didn't choose you. So today, we're diving deep into why silence is your greatest strength, how it reshapes the entire dynamic in relationships, the psychological battle they face when you walk away, why this is the ultimate test of their true feelings. By the end of this, you'll understand why walking away in silence is sometimes the most powerful response of all. Let's dive in. Vanishing from their life. The moment you choose silence, everything changes. Not for you, but for them. Until now, they had the luxury of your presence. You were always there, ready to listen, to validate, to reassure. They never had to question, and they assumed you would always be there. A constant source of comfort they didn't have to earn. But now, you're gone. No more calls, no more texts, no more checking in to see how their day is going, no more reactions to their social media posts, giving them that silent ego boost, no more being their emotional safety net. At first, they might not even notice. Maybe they assume you're just taking a break, playing hard to get. They might even welcome the silence, thinking it gives them space. But as hours turn into days, and days into weeks, a subtle discomfort begins to creep in. They instinctively check their phone, expecting a message from you, but there's nothing. They scroll through their notifications, wondering if they missed something, but there's nothing. For the first time, they are experiencing a world without you in it, and it feels different. It feels colder. It feels emptier. And this is where the power of silence truly begins. They act unbothered, but it's just a mask at first. They pretend nothing has changed. Maybe they even expected you to disappear, thinking it wouldn't affect them. They put on a front, laughing with friends, posting happy pictures, acting as if life is going on, as usual. To the outside world, it looks like they've moved on effortlessly. But behind closed doors, it's a different story. Silence has a strange effect on the mind. It forces people to sit with their own thoughts. And for someone who has been avoiding their emotions, silence is deafening. At night, when the distractions fade, they feel it the most. Every empty notification reminds them of the connection they lost. Every quiet moment is a reminder that something is missing. Every instinctive reach for their phone, expecting a message from you, is met with silence. At first, they convince themselves it doesn't matter, but as the silence stretches on, the void grows larger, because absence isn't just noticed, it's felt. And the longer your silence lasts, the heavier it becomes. The shift in power begins. Right now, they still believe they're in control. They think you're just waiting, hoping, lingering in the background. But as days turn into weeks, and weeks turn into months, reality starts to sink in. You're not coming back. And that's when the realization begins. They thought they could replace you, but no one makes them feel the way you did. They thought they could distract themselves, but distractions don't fill the void. They thought they didn't need you, but now they're questioning everything. And this is only the beginning, because from this moment on, the silence you chose will be the loudest thing they hear. Silence, while powerful in its own right, doesn't just make them confront their loss. It forces them into an internal struggle. It becomes a battle between pride and regret, where pride initially holds the reins, but regret quietly grows stronger with time. At first, they resist facing the truth. They refuse to admit they miss you, so they tell themselves they don't. Pride convinces them this is just temporary, that they're still in control, still in charge of the situation. They distract themselves with new hobbies, new people, and social media highlights. They convince themselves and their friends that walking away was the right decision. I don't miss them, they say, even though something deep inside doesn't feel quite right. But over time, a quiet whisper begins to grow louder. A thought, then a question. Did I make the right choice? This thought doesn't vanish. It lingers and intensifies, becoming harder to ignore. They start replaying moments in their mind. Every time they dismissed you, every time they took you for granted, and every time they assumed you'd always be there. What they failed to realize back then, how much you meant to them, is now sinking in. Regret creeps in piece by piece until it overwhelms them. The turning point. They miss your presence. Regret on its own is powerful, but what really begins to break them down is missing your presence. Because you weren't just filling space in their life. You were their anchor, their support, and their constant. The foundation they once took for granted. At first, they tell themselves replacing you would be easy. They think they can meet new people, fill the gap, and move on. But soon enough, they realize the reality is far more complicated. They start noticing the difference between a distraction and real connection. A random conversation feels shallow compared to the deep, meaningful talks they had with you. Superficial attention lacks the depth of your genuine care. No matter how many new faces they meet or new places they visit, nothing fills the emotional space you once occupied. They thought noise could replace your presence. But now, silence is louder than any distraction. The moment they break the silence they've been avoiding now has them cornered. The moment they begin to truly miss you is the moment they face a tough choice. Do they let go of their pride and reach out to you, or do they continue pretending they're unaffected? That decision is crucial. It will determine whether they finally take responsibility for their actions or let regret consume them. And now, they're beginning to see the real weight of their loss. They have to confront the reality of what they've lost: you. But there's a bigger question on the horizon. Will they act before it's too late? In the next section, we'll explore how regret becomes even more powerful and why their internal battle may soon reach its breaking point. Let's Dive deeper into how their world begins to fall apart as they truly realize the cost of losing you. They start feeling the emptiness at first. They thought they could outrun it. They distracted themselves. Social media, new people, parties, endless noise. They convinced themselves they had moved on. That life without you was better, easier, more exciting, but distractions don't last forever because the nights are the hardest. When the noise fades, when the crowd disappears, when the notifications slow down, they're left alone with their thoughts. And that's when they feel it the most. The emptiness your silence has created. They pick up their phone, scrolling through old messages, staring at your name, hovering over the send button, but stopping themselves. Their pride won't let them reach out, at least not yet. Instead, they lie awake replaying everything. What they said, what they did, how they pushed you away. And for the first time, the thought crosses their mind. What if they never come back? This is how regret begins. Not as an overwhelming realization, but as a slow creeping whisper in the back of their mind. At first, it's manageable, but over time, that whisper grows louder. It turns into doubt, then into guilt, then into something they can't escape, because the truth is they never actually believed they would lose you. They thought you'd always be there, waiting, ready to forgive. They assumed you'd still be an option whenever they were ready, but now, they're starting to wonder, what if you've moved on? What if this time you're truly gone? And that's when regret turns into a scream, realizing they lost something irreplaceable. The human mind is funny. It often doesn't appreciate something until it's gone. People don't miss water until the well runs dry. And now, the well is empty. Your silence has forced them to face a truth they never wanted to admit. You weren't just another person in their life. You were one of a kind. And now, you're gone. They start noticing it in ways they never expected. Their new connections, I feel hollow. The conversations lack the depth and warmth you brought. The people around them don't understand them the way you did. The validation they once got from others doesn't compare to the comfort you provided. And suddenly, the reality hits harder than they ever imagined. Because your absence isn't just about missing a person. It's about missing a feeling. The feeling of being cared for without conditions. The feeling of knowing someone truly understood them. The feeling of security that came with your presence. And now that it's gone, they finally understand what they had. But understanding it now doesn't mean they can get it back. This is the hardest part of regret. It's powerless. They can't change the past. They can't undo the way they treated you. They can't erase the moments where they dismissed your love, ignored your efforts, and acted like you didn't matter. And that's what torments them the most, because now they know one thing for certain. They had something rare, and they let it slip away. And now, they're the ones left wondering what could have been. But the real question is, will they do anything about it, or have they already lost you for good? Let's move forward. Temptation creeps in. Days, weeks, even months pass, and doubt starts whispering in your mind. Should you check in? What if they think you don't care? What if they're struggling and you should be there for them? This is the moment where most people break. This is when emotions try to overpower logic, when loneliness convinces you to undo all the progress you've made. But this is also the moment where you must stand firm. Because if you break the silence now, you don't just reach, you surrender your power. Breaking silence destroys your power. Reaching out resets everything, relieves their discomfort, reassures them that you're still there, and restores the control they thought they lost. If they haven't reached out yet, it's not because they don't care. It's because they don't want to be the one to break first. They want to know you're still available, that they still have a hold over you, that no matter what, they can always pull you back when it's convenient for them. But when you don't break, silence forces them to confront their own actions. It makes them feel the emptiness. It leaves them wondering if they've lost you for good. That doubt becomes your power. Let them wrestle with it. Let them feel the weight of their choices. If They truly valued you. They will reach out. If they don't, then you have your answer. Silence is strength, not waiting. This silence isn't about waiting for them to realize your worth. It's about shifting your energy inward, rebuilding yourself and reclaiming your own power. The Stoic philosopher Epictetus once said, "Circumstances don't make the man, they reveal him." This silence, this challenge, this moment, it's revealing who you truly are. Do you break when you don't receive validation? Or do you rise above it stronger than before? If they truly cared, they will feel your absence. If they truly valued you, they will regret letting you go. If they don't, then they were never yours to begin with. This is your test. Hold the silence. Stand your ground. The longer you stay silent, the louder your absence becomes. Can they handle it? Or are they finally realizing the cost of losing you? Your silence has settled in, and they have felt the discomfort of your absence. Regret is growing, but instead of facing it, they try to escape. The easiest way? Finding a replacement. They try to fill the void. Suddenly, they become more active. On social media. New outings, new people, maybe even a new relationship. But this isn't about moving on. This is about avoiding reality. They don't want to sit with the emptiness or the weight of their mistakes. Instead of confronting the void you left, they search for something, anything, to fill it. A new relationship, a rebound, a desperate attempt to recreate the comfort you provided. Random hookups, a distraction, a way to numb their loneliness with temporary pleasure. Partying, posting, staying busy. An act. A performance to convince themselves and everyone else that they're fine. But deep down, they know the truth. They know that the people around them aren't you. They know that no amount of attention can replace being truly understood. They know that no matter how many fake smiles they post, the regret doesn't disappear. Distractions don't heal wounds. They only delay the pain. And the longer they keep running, the more exhausted they become. Why their replacements will never work. First, they convince themselves it's working. They tell themselves, "See, I don't need them. I'm fine." But then reality sets in because no matter who they surround themselves with, something is missing. And what's missing? You. What you gave wasn't just attention. It wasn't just companionship. It was presence. It was care. It was something real, and that's not easy to replace. They compare every new person to you, but no one makes them feel the way you did. They crave the depth you brought, but superficial connections don't satisfy them. They try to recreate the bond they had with you, but bonds like that aren't built overnight. At first, they fight against it. They try harder and harder to convince themselves that they made the right choice. But as time passes, as the novelty of their distractions wears off, as they find themselves still feeling empty, they finally realize the painful truth. You weren't just another option. You were one of a kind, and now they've lost you. That's the moment panic sets in. But by then, you'll be too far ahead to look back. Because while they've been chasing distractions, you've been growing, healing, and becoming stronger than ever. And that's something they'll never be able to replace. Let's move forward. At first, they believed they had everything under control. They convinced themselves they didn't need you, that their distractions were enough to fill the void. They surrounded themselves with noise, with people, with temporary escapes, thinking it would be enough to move on. But now, something feels different. The temporary rush of new connections is wearing off. The excitement of distractions is fading. And beneath it all, the weight of their loss is settling in. This is the stage where reality finally hits them. They may not have realized it before, but you were more than just someone they talked to. You were a foundation in their life. Your support, your encouragement, the way you listened, the way you understood them, all provided a sense of stability they never acknowledged but had always relied on. And now, that stability is gone. At first, they try to act like everything is normal. But suddenly, the things that once felt effortless now feel heavier. Work stress seems harder to handle because you were the one they vented to. the one who reminded them they could push through. Small setbacks feel bigger, because without your encouragement, they don't have that emotional safety net to fall back on. Life itself seems duller. They took your presence for granted, but now their days feel emptier. Their victories feel smaller. Their joy feels incomplete. And that's when it dawns on them. They underestimated just how much they depended on you. This isn't just about losing someone to talk to. It's about losing a part of their life that made everything feel better, easier, more meaningful. They thought they could replace you. They thought moving on would be simple. But now they realize you weren't just another presence in their life. You were a part of their foundation. And without you, that foundation is starting to crack, the breaking point. This is where they reach a crossroad. For some, the regret becomes unbearable. They break down, drowning in guilt as they replay. Every moment they took you for granted. They struggle to focus, to move forward, to find fulfillment. Because for the first time, they understand they lost something irreplaceable. They may spiral into self-destructive habits, trying to numb the pain of knowing they pushed away the one person who truly cared. For others, this becomes a wake-up call. They begin to reflect on their actions, realizing they were the ones who ruined something valuable. They try to change, to grow, to become better. But by the time they reach this realization, it's often too late. Because while they've been drowning in regret, lost in their internal war, you've already moved forward. They expected you to wait. They assumed that whenever they were ready, they could come back, and you'd still be there, willing to give them another chance. But this time, you're too far ahead. You are no longer the person who begged for their attention. You've grown, you've healed, and you've built a life that no longer revolves around them. And that's the real loss they'll have to live with, because the truth is, some people only realize your worth when you're no longer an option. Now, standing in the ruins of their own choices, they finally see it. They lost something they will never get back, and that's the cost of taking you for granted. Let's keep going. After all the distractions, avoidance, and silent battles within themselves, they finally reach the ultimate crossroads. There is no more running, no more pretending, no more masking their emotions with temporary pleasures. The truth stands before them, and they are left with only two choices. They can choose growth, to confront their mistakes, to reflect, to change. Or they can remain stuck, clinging to their pride, refusing to admit they were wrong, burying themselves in denial. But the reality is, whichever path they take, it no longer matters to you, because you have already moved forward. The two paths path. Growth, but too late for some, this experience becomes a wake-up call. They finally realize the truth. They pushed away someone irreplaceable, and their own actions led to losing the best thing in their life. The love and care you gave them was not something they could find again. This realization may push them toward change. They might finally begin to work on themselves, becoming more self-aware, understanding their flaws, and trying to be the person they should have been all along. And maybe, just maybe, they gather the courage to reach out again, hoping to mend what was broken. But by now, it doesn't matter. They assumed that when they were finally ready, you would still be waiting. But you're not. You've moved forward. You've built a life where they no longer hold a place. And when they come back, hoping to undo the damage, they find that the door is already closed. Because through all of this, you have learned something even more valuable than they have. Your worth was never dependent on their recognition of it, and that's why, even if they grow, it doesn't change the fact that they lost you. Path B. Stuck in denial, then there are those who never learn. Instead of accepting responsibility, they remain trapped in their own ego. They convince themselves it wasn't their fault. They rewrite the story in their mind, pretending they never really cared that much, that losing you didn't affect them. They distract themselves with shallow connections, telling themselves they made the right decision, but deep down they feel it, the emptiness, the regret, The weight of knowing they let go of something valuable, and it's never coming back, and they will carry that regret for a long, long time, because no matter how much they try to pretend otherwise, they know they had something rare. They had someone who truly cared, and they lost it because of their own choices. Why this is your victory at the end of it all. The most important thing isn't whether they regret losing you. It's not whether they choose to grow or stay stuck. The most important thing is that you've moved forward. You're no longer waiting for validation. You're no longer hoping they wake up. You're no longer wasting your energy on someone who only valued you after you were gone. And that's the ultimate victory, because real power isn't found in making them regret losing you. Real power is knowing their regret doesn't define your worth. You are not someone who waits. You are not someone who begs to be seen. You are not someone who needs to be chosen. You choose yourself. As Marcus Aurelius once said, you have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. They were an event. You are the power. And now you walk away not with bitterness, not with anger, but with strength. Because no matter what happens next, you've already won. This is your new beginning. And they're just a lesson you've already learned. Onward. Your new life without them. And now, here you are. Stronger, wiser, free. This journey was never about revenge. It was never about making them suffer or hoping they'd wake up and see your worth. This journey was about you. You walked away not because you were weak, but because you finally understood that your value doesn't depend on someone else's recognition of it. For too long, you sought validation from someone who never truly saw you. You gave love, time, and effort to someone who took it for granted. And in return, all you got was uncertainty, disrespect, and a constant feeling of being not enough. But now, that chapter is over. No more seeking validation. No more proving your worth to someone who never appreciated it. No more chasing someone who was never meant to be yours. Because the truth is, you were always enough. They just weren't capable of seeing it. And that's no longer your concern. Instead of looking back, instead of wondering what if, you now look forward. This silence was never about them. It was about rediscovering yourself. The energy you once poured into them, you now pour into yourself. The love you so freely gave, you now give to your own growth. The validation you craved, from them, you now find within. You are no longer the person who waited. You are no longer the person who begged. You are no longer the person who clung to false hope. You are free. Affirmation for your strength. Before we end this, take a deep breath. Say this with me: I am free, my silence is my strength. Say it again, louder with conviction. I am free, my silence is my strength. This is your truth now. Every time doubt creeps in, every time you wonder if you made the right choice, every time you feel tempted to look back, remember these words. You didn't lose them, they lost you. And from this moment forward, you choose yourself. Call to action, take back your power. Now let's talk. Are you embracing your silence? Have you taken that step to walk away and reclaim your power? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. I read every single one. Let's build a community where we uplift each other, where we remind each other of our worth. And if this message resonated with you, if you're on this journey of self-worth and resilience, then hit that like button. Let's spread this message so more people can find the strength to let go of what no longer serves them. And if you haven't already, subscribe, because this journey isn't over. There's more wisdom to uncover, more strength to build, more lessons that will only make you more powerful. You've come this far, and trust me, this is only the beginning. Onward.